Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining the AMA with CZ today as part of our Hack Africa series. We're glad to partner with Web3 Foundation on this series as well, who'll be kind of helping us throughout the Hack Africa hackathon. So yeah, this event will be recorded and put on our YouTube. So if you wanted to kind of watch it back, you can do that probably in the next few days. And Binance Smart Chain are going to be gold sponsors of the upcoming hackathon. Sorry, just Web3 Bridge, not Web3 Foundation. Apologies. We've got Ayadeji here today as well, who's representing them and will be asking a question or two. So yeah, this is the second time we've had CZ for an AMA. We had one 6 months ago. So in this session, we'll cover a bit of ground we covered last time, especially on the background, but there will also be a kind of focus on African blockchain ecosystem and the upcoming Hack Africa hackathon. So just to give anyone that might not know a bit on CZ's background, CZ studied at McGill University in Canada, started studying actually biology before switching to computer science, and also did a kind of a semester at Waterloo University as part of his co-op program. But after university, went on to Bloomberg and quickly rose through the ranks there to become the head of Tradebook futures development. And following that, went on to found his own company, Fusion Systems, which is doing a lot of kind of trading infrastructure, and ran that for 8 years before jumping into the blockchain space. Working at a few different exchanges and then founding Binance in mid-2017, which has now gone on to, as we all know, become the biggest crypto exchange in the world, and is a fantastic testament to fast execution and kind of continuous improvement. So first of all, CZ, fantastic to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So yeah, just to kick off, I wanted to ask a question around, given the theme of this talk around Hack Africa and the African blockchain ecosystem, how much of an impact do you think that blockchain can have, particularly on, and DeFi, particularly on Africa?
I think it's going to be humongous. I think basically, I don't know, to be very honest, I don't know to what extent exactly it will have, but Africa has a very unique opportunity where I believe, according to some stats last year, only 11% of the population have bank accounts. So there's not a whole lot of existing financial infrastructure to upend. So the adoption of blockchain technologies and DeFi technologies might be faster than some of the Western, more developed traditional financial markets. And also offers a way to for people to access financial markets directly on the blockchain, which actually provides a much fairer market. So we've seen this with the internet, where in countries where the landline phones are not very established, they go directly to mobile. So we're hoping that this will happen in Africa for this. This is why we are very happy to see a lot of initiatives, a lot of educational initiatives, a lot of hackathons happening in the Africa continent. And I think it's going to be huge.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that as well. And I know that Binance do a lot of work in kind of promoting blockchain in Africa, including developer training and sponsoring, obviously, our hackathon and other hackathons there. So thank you very much for that. And I wanted to kind of ask, because you mentioned on your last talk that you did a few internships during your university career. And I know co-op programs in Canada are very popular with students, where you do a bit of work experience and a bit of academic learning and kind of alternate between the two. So I wanted to ask kind of what skills did those internships give you that academia didn't?
I actually think, to be very frank, I think those internships probably helped me a lot more than the courses in university. This is not to say courses in university are not important, but after we graduate, we don't really use a lot of the courses that we study in university. Like, I mean, advanced calculus, linear algebra, quantum physics. I don't use any of that in my day-to-day work. Whereas the internship experience I did, I got to learn about the corporate culture. What people talk about at in office meeting or in professional meetings, what people think about, what kind of decision making goes on in a corporation, etc. Those things are really, really important. Those things are very, very helpful. So I think the earlier we get exposure to that, the better. So this is why I think the University of Waterloo co-op program, where you study for 1 semester and work for 1 semester, study work, which extends 4 years to 5 years, is totally worth it. you get exposure into a lot of different companies, a lot of different environments. And as an intern, people don't have a lot of strong expectations on what you have to deliver. So you're not really under the microscope. You have to deliver a lot. And I think that's a fantastic experience. I think I benefited definitely more from those experiences than just starting courses in school. So it was actually after those experiences, my course grades kind of degraded because I kind of lost interest in them. But this is not to say don't take your courses seriously. Do take your courses seriously. They are still important. So yeah, don't take this the wrong way. I hope there's not any professors on this call.
Yeah, hopefully just all students. And we are glad to be joined today by kind of many of our partners in Africa, such as the Web3 Bridge, lots of universities around Africa in kind of Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, as well as our wider kind of global audience. And I'm sure as a lot of those are students that may not be fortunate to be in a co-op program. I wanted to ask the question on their behalf. Are Binance currently hiring sort of interns and graduates, and particularly in Africa?
Absolutely. So we're hiring at every level, including interns, and we're hiring for every position. So if you're a developer, or if you can write some code, if you want to be a marketing, I don't know, community manager, if you want to work on a customer support desk, etc. So we're hiring all positions, and we do look for interns. And we're also running a large number of master classes in Africa. We do a lot of educational efforts. We also have a charity arm in Africa that's fairly active in Africa. We sponsor launches for about 100 schools or something. So we have a lot of those different type of initiatives, and we welcome anyone to come join our team. Yeah, so for interns, we may not pay that highly, to be very frank, but it's learning experience for you. It's learning experience for us as well. So yeah, we do want to welcome opportunities for you to come join us, and we can learn together.
That's great to hear. There's so many opportunities to work with Binance in Africa. And just kind of to remind people, after a couple more questions, we'll be going to the audience questions. So if you would like to ask a question, be sure to raise your hand and we'll kind of rotate to those shortly. But just to follow on from that question, what would you say is the most desirable skill or attribute that you would like Binance employees or potential future employees to have?
So I think every skill is okay. I think my general advice is like this. You want to find something that you're good at, you're interested in, and then that's of value to the world. So it could be programming, it could be business development, it could be marketing, it could be customer support, it could be legal, it could be HR, it could be finance. So there's a lot of different fields that you can go into. The key, usually people are interested in what they're good at. Usually those two kind of tend to combine. There are some special cases where people are good at something, but they hate it. That's usually not a good combination. But once you find those two, that thing still should be valuable to other people in the world. If you can find the combination of those three, then you're in a pretty good place. And over the long term, you should be able to realize the value of that. You become exceedingly good at it, and you're likely to work hard at it, and you become good. But overwhelmingly, though, more of our positions, more of our high-value positions are in the tech area. So developers, product designers, QA people, DevOps, etc. So more of our opportunities are longer-term opportunities are in those areas. So and if you have a tech background, that's an area that we have a large number of positions for. We also have a large number of positions for like customer support, etc. But if that's what you're interested in, helping people, then those are good roles as well. Many of our customer support people, when they join customer support, may be viewed as a lower rank position, but they actually advance through the ranks to our other groups as well. So it's a good entry point to Binance as well. So all of those things are possible.
Fantastic, and I think that's a great segue to introduce Ayodeji, who is the founder of Web3 Bridge, who are kind of based in Nigeria, and they do train a lot of Web2 developers to become Web3 developers, and a lot of work in Africa is really positive, and we're glad to be partnered with them for Hack Africa. So Ayodeji, if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you very much, George, and happy to meet CS on this call. Thanks for this call. And I think I actually share the sentiments that while learning on the job actually gives you more edge than learning through what you've taught in the university. So as introduction before the question, Web3 Bridge, what we do is to train developers across Nigeria. Web3 developers, we do Web2 to Web3 developers across Africa, and we are working to be the best or the biggest hub for training developers into the ecosystem. We started 2019, and so far we've had good success records till date. So my question is, looking at the space of this hackathon, what will be, like, I'm asking because of the developers that will be joining the hackathon, what will be Binance interest in the hackathon? Like, will be DeFi, NFT? I know Binance NFT is launching soon, so I think to build up interest among the people that are participating in the hackathon, like, what is the special interest for Binance in this hackathon?
Sure. Okay. That's a very good question. So we have a very wide range of interest in a hackathon. So I actually don't think people should limit themselves to any specific area. It could be anything that Binance does today. It could be anything that Binance don't have. We're equally interested. And just give you a very brief idea. We have hosted maybe like 10 different hackathons through, like, in the last 3 years. So maybe like once a quarter, slightly less in the last year or two because of the COVID. But of our, when we look back at some of our portfolio companies, a large number went through hackathons, and then incubation, and then Binance Launchpad, Binance Labs Launchpad, and then they have a token that's listed. So I can give you a couple of examples. ICEFPAL is one of those hackathon projects that went through our initial hackathon, then become a labs investment. So they do hardware wallets. Well, they do crypto wallets. They have hardware wallets, and they also have a very popular software-only wallet. And that's getting a lot of traction. A number of other projects, including MobileCoin, which is actually the same team behind Signal. So the developers team behind Signal, the chat app, the encrypted chat app, actually went through our incubation season 2. And we have like 5 or 6 of, well, actually more than that, probably 5 to 10 of those incubation projects today, which we are a small shareholder. We hold some tokens, and their coins listed on Binance. So that's actually, so we have quite a number of successful examples in that area. A couple of things, like, so if you guys want to develop an NFT platform, that's good. If you guys want to develop, I was talking with one of my colleagues today. We want to look for more blockchain analysis, big data analysis platforms for compliance, for risk management, etc. If you're able to do that, that's good. If you want to work on wallets, if you want to work on exchanges, you work on DeFi. All of those things are good, and there's probably many things I haven't imagined. Again, I would say just do what you're interested in, and there's a chance that, look, most experiments fail, to be very frank, at an early stage. But look, everything's a learning experience. So yeah, I mean, do any of those things, it's not, a lot of the successes are not immediately clear. You'll usually take multiple years. Let's say you do a hackathon, you have some prototype, which gains some traction. But usually afterwards, we'll talk with our investment team. You may get a small investment, or you may get a grant from us first, with no strings attached, usually a smaller amount. And then later on, if you still do well, then you may get an investment. We'll talk about equity a little bit. And then if you still do well from there, you build a product that people use. You can issue a token, get listed on Binance, and that usually gives most of the funding team financial freedom at that point. And then they're free to do whatever they want to do. They have a lot more freedom to continue to build out the products, etc. So those are some of the good examples. There's a lot more, of course. I can't iterate through all of them.
Yeah, thanks. I think that answers my question. I should build wide, unimaginable interest among the coders. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm just going to move on next to University of Cape Town AI and Crypto Society to hear there with a question. Oh, I think you muted to hear. Nice background, by the way.
Thanks. Just an honor to speak to you. I think on behalf of everyone here, I just wanted to say that before I'd ask my question. So I was wondering, what is the sort of screening process Binance makes for listing new cryptocurrencies in terms of deciding should they be allowed on the trading platform? And I just wondered, how would you see that process change as the market matures? in terms of maybe getting into the mainstream more or adoption? How would you see that sort of process change?
Yeah. So so I wrote an article on LinkedIn 3 years ago about the listing process at Binance, and before we look at a lot more criteria, but as we mature now, we look at increasingly more just one metric: number of users. So if you have a project or product that have a large number of users, it's much easier to get listed on Binance. But even just on this one metric alone, well, the thesis behind it is that if you have something that a lot of people use, it has value. So it has a very simple thesis, and we let the crowd, we let the community select projects for us. If there's a large number of users using your product, using your project, then most likely your project is valuable. But even with this, the definition of number of users is a little bit tricky. Do we count number of addresses on the blockchain? Do we count number of transactions on a blockchain? Or do we count number of users you publish for your app? Do we look at download numbers for your app? Do we look at Twitter followers? Do we look at Telegram group size? So we actually look at a combination of all of those things. But we actually don't publish what the formula is because each case is a little bit different. And also whatever formula we publish, if we say, look, it's 20% Twitter followers plus 20% something else, people will try to game it. People can engineer, people can buy Twitter followers, etc. Sometimes we even look, or very often we also look at GitHub commits. How often so we try to look at everything to judge how active the project is. It's generally quite hard to fake all of those numbers. It's quite easy to fake any one of those numbers, but it's usually more work than to build a real product than to fake all of those numbers. But so the overwhelming criteria we look at is number of users. But if you have a very new product, if you're at an early stage, then listing we're very careful with. We may look at investments or give a grant, but we may not list right away. So that's kind of the decision. That's at a very high level. There's of course a lot more details to that, but at a very high level, that's the overwhelming criteria we look at.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Norbert, who's the lead of the Kwame Nkrumah University Blockchain Society based in Ghana.
Yes, thank you, George, and thank you, CZ, for coming to us for this AMA. You are actually one of my role models in this industry, and my name is Norbert Amankwa, the founder of KNUST Blockchain Hub. KNUST happens to be the best university here in West Africa with a large number of students, and we founded this blockchain society mainly because of education to train our students for blockchain development and build products on the blockchain. But we've had a lot of issues in terms of the skills needed because the school doesn't provide the tuition in blockchain development. And so some friends of mine and some colleagues of mine have learned the basics of blockchain development on our own. And I want to ask, is there any opportunities of such sorts provided by Binance to help particularly university clubs like KNUST Blockchain Hub? If so, I think later last year, we hosted Binance X for a virtual summit, and my friends and I gained a Binance X evangelist. And as I'm speaking right now, I'm a Binance evangelist. And so I want to ask if there are other opportunities for KNUST Blockchain Hub to even get a blockchain mentor to help us with our developing skills. Because we have currently a startup that we've researched on, a startup that we want to do. Because as we were talking at the early stages, you said that 11% of Africans only have bank accounts. The rest 89% are relying on mobile payment system. And we have a startup trying to blend crypto payments with our local fiat payments. And we need mentorship, we need the developing skills, and we need everything that the blockchain industry can support. And so this is my little suggestion and my question as well. Thank you, CZ.
Okay, thanks, Norbert. So to answer the question, frankly, I don't think we have, I'm not aware of any developer training specifically sponsored by Binance in Africa, also not so much mentors. Those are relatively difficult to organize because the good developers they're generally quite busy developing on other projects. So I would say the best chances are just sort of mentorships, internships, where you can learn from the other sort of developers. We do have multiple teams in Africa. I guess you're in West Africa, but earlier in Nigeria, we have a team of just under 100 people for Bundle, which is also a 100% owned wallet, blockchain wallet. It's independently branded and is led by one of the relatively famous entrepreneurs, Yele. So we don't specifically have a developer training program. We have what we call a Binance Masterclass, which focuses on educating people about blockchain, but that's more consumer focused, less developer focused. To be honest, today, not to just mention like mentors for blockchain, just even hiring developers. Blockchain developers are quite difficult because the good ones are quite busy. There's a lot of different projects going on. The best thing I would recommend is there is quite a lot of information on the internet, and that's really the best place to go. The requirements really basically you have an internet connection and a laptop. So there needs to be a lot of self-learning that needs to happen. I think it's relatively difficult for us to set up mentor programs where they can people teach people programming one-to-one. It's generally very expensive and it's very hard to find mentors who want to do that. The good developers, they all want to write code themselves. So it's better to get internships for that regard. So that unfortunately is the situation as I understand it.
Awesome, thank you very much, CZ. And to kind of build on that as well, I'm sure that the Web3 Bridge may be able to help out there, Norbert. And obviously, our upcoming hackathon will be having some technical workshops from ourselves and the sponsors. So be sure to come along to those to kind of pick up some skills and learn more about developing in the Web3 world. So we'll go on to Dan Black now from Leeds University in the UK.
Hi, CZ. Thank you very much for coming on today. It's been, again, great to just hear a brief bit of your story and how you've actually arisen to becoming a blockchain boss effectively. But effectively, I'm looking at asking you about how you go about articulating your problems that you face, whether that be like everyday problems or really big scale problems like in Africa, because obviously I think, especially me being at uni, I found that, again, problem solving is a lot more fun than doing essays. And I kind of relate to how you kind of transitioned away from, again, the very structured curriculums and into the more internships which allowed a bit more breadth of thinking. So how would you go about articulating big scale problems like those ones in Africa, whether it be economical or social? I'd just like to get your viewpoint on that.
Sure. Yeah, Dan, thanks for the question. I actually don't really have a smart answer for that. The way Binance is really organized is I don't view that I have any smart ideas on how to solve this big problems top down. I think some of the big problems needs to be solved bottom up. So the way Binance try to attack this type of situations is we have many different teams working on many different problems. Some of them are overlapping, some of them are not. And one day, some days, some people will solve some problem. And so I don't really believe in centralized planning, me being the smart strategist and trying to come up with some strategy that will solve big problems. I think today we face many big problems. We don't have a very high degree of freedom of money. Our money is not that free. And we constantly get abused by inflation, quantitative easing, high cost of cross-border transactions, not enough investment in less developed countries, etc. So, but all of them are very big problems. But I never really position myself as the guy who will solve all of these problems. So we have a team in Africa, Bondo, which I mentioned just a minute ago. They are helping to provide financial access to people in Africa, and we have multiple things that we try. But it's not to say any one of them will succeed in any way. But we, from our perspective, we have somewhere around a few thousand people trying at this thing, trying to solve small problems one at a time constantly. So hopefully, given enough time, we will be. So if you look on a day-to-day basis, we make very small changes. But if you look at on a yearly or multiple year basis, we look back, we say, well, we actually made some progress. So I think basically from my perspective, it's really bottom up driven. So we just collectively work on different problems that we think are meaningful. And hopefully at some point we'll help crack some of those bigger problems. So I unfortunately don't have any sort of big plans to say, hey, how do we solve the poverty problem? How do we solve this other? So I think problems are solved very incrementally. So I don't really have a specific answer to your question. I apologize, but that's kind of how Binance is ran.
Okay, thank you very much, CZ.
Cheers.
Fantastic. Next, we'll go on to Joseph from Grip Finance, which is one of the projects currently coming through the Encode Accelerator. After you, Joseph.
Thanks. My question is more on crypto startups in Africa. So I'm from South Africa, and our local sort of central bank is currently piloting a digital currency. So I guess from you, I want to know what's the impact of that, central bank digital currencies specifically within Africa, given the background of the free trade agreement, which will make Africa borderless. So what's the impact of that on crypto startups? And also what's the best way for crypto startups to sort of defend themselves against that threat?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of different, there's plus and minuses in those situations. A number of things could happen, and they could be positive or negative. The positive things first. Number one, when a central bank issues a cryptocurrency, a digital currency based on the blockchain, that provides very strong credibility, and that validates the blockchain concept very heavily for that population. So the population will say, hey, look, blockchains are serious. Our central banks issuing a digital currency on the blockchain. So that lends a lot of credibility towards our industry, which is really good. It also educates the population about blockchain digital currencies. Now everyone's learning about it, and they're learning it most likely in a positive fashion that the central banks are issuing it. Now some drug lords, digital currency, etc. That was very often associated with Bitcoin. And then the other benefit could be that if this digital currency can be used by cryptocurrency exchanges like us, then it provides additional fiat on-ramp and a more intermediate bridge between the crypto world and the fiat world. There's many good possibilities along those lines. There are also many potential negatives along those lines. Number one, the central bank digital currency itself, even although it may use some of the same technologies as blockchain, they may be public key, private key, encryption, etc. But most of the first iterations of the central bank digital currencies probably are very centralized. They're probably unlimited supply, which means that the central bank can mint additional coins as they wish. So we'll continue to have inflation, which basically takes our wealth away. They probably will have restrictions on our ability to use them. So if you want to send $1 million from Africa to China, there will probably be a lot of questions asked. You probably still have to supply a lot of documents, which reduces the freedom aspects of using that blockchain. There may be even additional surveillance tracking built into the blockchain so that we actually lose our privacy and anonymity. So there may be a negative to that. And there's another negative, which could be that the central bank says, okay, now we have a central bank digital currency. We're going to ban Bitcoin. We're going to ban all the other cryptocurrencies. And this is the only one you can use. So all of those are potential things they could do. I'm not saying that anyone's doing that. Well, some of them are doing that. Some of them are not. I actually don't know the specifics of South Africa. So we have to see. Just because the government is issuing a digital, but it's also conceivable some government will issue a central bank digital currency that's limited supply, high degree of freedom of transactions, and very little interference and low fees. And crypto exchanges like us or any crypto business can integrate with that directly, then that's fantastic. That's great. Then now we have a much more seamless bridge. We don't need stable coins that much. So there's a lot of different ways you could go. So it's not a complete positive, it's not a complete negative. We have to look at the specific situation to see hey, does this really, is this really, the features of this central bank digital currency, is it really limited supply? Is it really safe? Is it really high freedom, etc., and low fees? So we have to look at those things on case-by-case basis. So until they come out, we don't really know. So we have to look at the specific properties of each currency. But so there could be plus and minuses. We'll just have to see.
Okay, so for crypto startups, generally, you think they're not, sort of the industry is not going away soon, or it'll not impact on our margins to make money?
No, I think on that point, we don't have to worry too much. I think unless the country strictly bans any involvement of crypto businesses, it's usually a net positive for crypto business startups. Whenever there's new things introduced, there's opportunity. So whenever there's whenever more options are provided to our users, there's more opportunities. So usually it's positive, unless there are very strong restrictions about banning, cryptocurrency exchanges, crypto businesses, banning banks from working with crypto businesses. If there's a lot of those restrictions, then that's usually negative for business. But if it's just the central bank issuing a new digital currency, that's usually good.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot. And now we'll move on to Alendu, who is also from Web3 Bridge.
Hello. Okay, I'm Alendu Ifani from the Web3 Bridge community. I'm interested in the Binance internship. I'd like to know the modality and how I can get into it.
Sure. So we have a very lengthy job page. I think that's probably like 300 positions on there. So the internship positions are commingled in there. We actually deliberately did all the listings on that one page, just so that the guys who were really interested had to find it. It does take some effort. So we do have we have a couple HR person in Africa, and they do look at the application. So the best way to get involved is really actually just apply directly on Binance.com's website. So on Binance.com at the bottom there's a career link. That's really the best way to apply. And yeah, so it's better than going through me, which if it goes through me, I forget all the time, I get distracted. So I drop things quite a lot. So that's usually the best place to go. And if you specify which you are, where you're from, which type of positions you're interested in, and
oh, I think you're muted, CZ. Not sure how that happened. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Just missed the tiny last bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think I just touched the trackpad, which myself. Yeah. So going through the Binance website is actually the best way to reach out to us. Yeah.
Awesome. And Anthony has put the link in the chat there as well, for anyone that's interested, as well as the link to sign up for Hack Africa, which is an opportunity to learn more about building on Binance Smart Chain and build something cool, and hopefully kind of go further with that. So next we'll move on to Nick, who is from South Africa and is the president of the Global FinTech Network.
Hi, CZ. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your day just to come and answer some of our questions, I guess. Yeah, so my question is really more about the state of cryptocurrencies at the moment, and I'd really like to get your opinion. I think a lot of people, although some people do use cryptocurrency as actual currency to trade and buy things, buy coffee, all of that sort of thing, I think the majority of people really look at cryptocurrency as an investment vehicle. So for instance, holding gold or platinum or some other commodity like that. Are you trying to, I guess, promote people into using cryptocurrencies as everyday currency, or currently, I guess, keeping it as the status quo as an investment vehicle?
Okay, so I really want to encourage people to use it as an everyday currency. I think if you look at longer term, 5, 10, 20 years from now, that will be the case. People will be using cryptocurrency for everyday transactions, for small micro transactions, for big transactions, cross borders, etc. So I think as much as I run an exchange and we love people to be trading, and that generates commission fees for us, but I really want to get the usage and adoption out there. I think cryptocurrencies, so far, the biggest use case is a commodity or asset where people trade and try to use it to hold value. But I think that's just one small aspect. I think longer term is really, we really, in order to get If you look at the population across the world, how many people are active traders? Probably, I don't know, 10, 15%. There's a lot more people who are just who use money or who use investments, etc. So in order to get the mass adoption to that level, we really need people to be using that on a daily basis. Admitted that right now it's relatively difficult for most people on a daily basis. So, but I think it just takes time to get there. Right? And as an industry, I try to push for that as much as I can.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers.
Thanks for that. And now we'll go to Vijay, who's another kind of Encode alumni, come through one of our hackathons and actually built on Binance Smart Chain in the last Encode hackathon. So over to you, Vijay.
Hi, thanks, George. Hi, CZ. Yeah, it was great building on BSC, and now we have graduated from the hackathon and built a startup VCred. And my question is, now that we have a small team and we're building the product, how do you scale a product based on your experience, your past experience with Binance? It'll be great to have some general advice from you.
Okay, I think that's hi Vijay. That's a very broad, big question. There's a lot of different ways. So I would say number one is before you try to scale it, you actually want to test if you have product market fit, if you have stickiness. So basically, you don't want to. Most of the scaling and pushing it out requires a lot of effort and money and etc. So before that, you want to test that. You want to look at a couple of things. That does your product have stickiness? People who use a product once, are they going to use it again? And what's the attrition? What's the fall off rate, etc. And do people continuously use it? And also, what's the viral effect? Does people use it, tell two of their friends or not? Ideally, you want to build products where it's viral on its own. So that means like at least one person has to tell two other people, and then you don't have to do much marketing. Then you can your product markets itself. But usually that's if you have that, you're extremely lucky. Most of us don't have that. So most of us take multiple iterations to get to that point. So you want to get feedback, etc. On your initial product, which is really important. So I would say that's before sort of trying to scale your product, because otherwise you're just going to spend a lot of money. You get 100,000 users in, but then 3 months later you still ending up with, I don't know, 1,000 users, which is not good. And then you spend a bunch of money and effort. So you really want to make sure that the product market fit is there. Once you have product market fit, then there's a lot of easy ways. Then you want to spend time. I would recommend usually using a community approach. It's usually much cheaper than spending marketing dollars. So Binance started with a much more community-driven approach, where we have Telegram groups, we have Twitter followers, we have a lot of volunteers in the community helping us spreading the word. And then only much later we started spending money on marketing, like search engine marketing, app store marketing, etc. So even today we spend very tiny amounts on marketing. So I'm actually not a marketing expert. I think if looking at the Coinbase Q2 report or Q1 report, they spend probably 100 times more on marketing than we do. But we have a very loyal user base. So I focus much more on what can your users do for you. So you want to have your users market for you. So that's, but it's a very broad question. There's a lot more that goes on. I need to know what kind of product you have, etc. But if you're building on Binance Smart Chain, there's a very tight communities on Twitter. So Twitter, Reddit is probably your community channels. You want to have a personality there. You want to have a presence there. It's actually not that difficult, because right now the communities are relatively small and relatively tight. You just get a couple of KOLs. They will do most of the work for you. So you just got to tap into a few KOLs. So I would say that's usually a much better approach than sort of mass advertising on search engines, buying keywords, etc. So try those approaches first and see how it goes. But before all of that, make sure you have the right product. And that's usually the hardest part. If you have the right product, then everything else is easy. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks. We'll try that.
Sure. And also, I want to add, there's another very valuable tool, which is your token. So if you design a token with strong incentives in there, that's usually a very strong marketing tool that most traditional businesses do not have. But again, we have to go into a lot of depth there. You don't want to make it like a scam that people just get in and then they lose money, but you want to design the token economics well. So it takes quite a lot of thought into it. But the token itself is a very strong advertising user attraction tool. So you want to use that if you can. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Thank you.
Cheers.
And we'll move on to Afiz from Web3 Bridge as well. Feel free to ask your question, Afiz. Okay. Are you there, Afiz? There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
hello.
We can now.
I
think we're having some problems with the connection.
Hi, good afternoon, CZ. Can you hear me? Hello.
Apologies, Afiz. We'll come back to you in 5 minutes, maybe when hopefully the connections are a bit better. But let's go to Ben Cox from the University of Leeds for the next question.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, Ben.
Okay, all good. So first of all, thank you very much for being here today, CZ, and giving up your time to speak. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm sure everybody else does as well. So my question is more centered around your experience over the last few years. So I can only imagine the journey that you have been on. And I'd love to hear about something that if you could go back and tell yourself, whether that was in 2017 when you started Binance or earlier on in your career, something that you thought or that you think could be really useful to someone like us, or something that you wish you knew back then, really, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, well, of course, there's a lot of lessons, depending on how much startup experience you guys have, etc. Running a startup is probably the most demanding job you could ask for. So there's just a lot of challenges, a lot of things coming out from left field. One of the lessons I've learned over the years is everything that I thought was going to be a huge success didn't turn out to be, and the things that turn out to be successes are usually things that I haven't really imagined. So the first thing is actually just mentally be prepared that whatever the brightest idea, the best thing that you think you have right now may or may not pan out. You may have to pivot many times. So just mentally, just have that mental capacity and have that mental flexibility around that is very important. This will so that you don't get overly. You want to be very committed to your project. You're not doing it in a half-assed way, but you don't want to be overly committed that you can't change when things are not working. So there's a very fine balance between the two. So I think that's for, at least for me personally, when I was quite a bit younger, I had a lot of difficulty with those kind of things. Took me a long time to learn and adjust. And then also the second thing, which I think is really, really important, is there's usually a lot of fluffy stuff. There's a lot of like guys who tell you all kind of fancy stuff, business partners that promise you all kind of great stuff. They have super strong relationships and all this fancy stuff that never materialize. So I would just say in any sort of business relationships, go down to the basics or focus on the users. So just follow the users. And then when you strip away all the fluffy stuff, what matters is execution ability. So ideas are not important, is how well you can execute. So it took me a long time to realize this kind of things. Whereas nowadays I focus much on execution ability. I don't care about the fluffy ideas. I don't care about how grand things are. I don't care how strong people's backgrounds are. I just care about execution ability. And I'm very careful with we don't get married onto ideas that have not been proven. So I think basically for me it's like along those a few very simple principles. Would help is basically what I stick to, and generally helps me get spend much less time on all the distractions, etc.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And next we'll go to Zheng Yin.
Hi, CZ.
Oh.
Hi. Just want to ask about what your thoughts are on councils and governing bodies, and whether they would have a positive or negative effect on crypto, because through the news that we've recently had with China banning Bitcoin and like Ray Dalio saying that the US will probably ban Bitcoin in the future. So I'd just like to hear what you think.
Sure. I generally no one can predict regulations, because regulations are not made by one person. They're usually made by multiple government regulatory agencies, etc. So can't predict it. But I think it'd be very I think it's very unlikely for US to ban crypto. I mean, we just have a crypto exchange going getting listed on NASDAQ. So I think that's very strong validation that US is a open democratic country with freedom of speech, freedom of code, freedom of business. So I think that's a huge testament to the US Constitution. I think them banning crypto right now is going to be very unlikely. What's more likely, though, I think U.S. regulations typically focus more on AML, so against terrorists. So they have to do KYC, follow the processes, etc. So there are likely going to be more and more of those clear restrictions, which may be more cumbersome and restrictive to crypto businesses. But I think crypto itself will not be banned in the U.S. In other countries, less sure. In other countries, there's less clarity. But fundamentally, though, any country that bans crypto outright are going to miss out on a lot of the fintech innovations over the next few years or the few decades. So I think there's balances that countries have to think about. Again, I can't predict for what any one country is going to do. I think no one can, because those are all usually group decisions that are formed over long periods of time. So that's on the sort of regulation front. So I think fundamentally, though, you can ban Bitcoin, but I think it's very difficult to ban blockchain technology itself. And even if you ban blockchain technology, that's going to be blockchain technology too. It's a technology that will continue to evolve. So it's a concept. And once the concept is spread in enough people's minds, or I think right now there's probably like 300 to 500 million people who understands blockchain now. You can't erase that concept. It's like if we can ban the internet, there will be internet too. So I think that's kind of my understanding on the sort of a current regulatory landscape. I don't think crypto will go away, and I don't think it's possible for countries to outright ban crypto completely. At the end of the day, Bitcoin doesn't exist technically. What exists is just your private key, which is a string of numbers, which with some training you could, or you can just remember 12 words, which is your seed. And with some training, most people can remember 12 words in their heads. They don't have to store it anywhere. So I think you can't make it illegal to remember 12 words in your head. So I think it's basically impossible to ban. There will be more and more regulations coming through. So what industry players will have to play, will have to be compliant with those to the extent possible. But at the same time, there's also DeFi, right? So DeFi doesn't do any KYC ML. If the centralized exchanges become very cumbersome to use, then all the volume is going to move to DeFi, and DeFi, an anonymous person can deploy a smart contract, which is just a piece of code running on the blockchain. So that's also increasingly popular now. So things can go different ways. It's hard to say.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Cheers. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm conscious we only have 10 minutes left, so we'll try and get to as many questions as we can. So let's go to Divya next for your question. Hello, Divya.
Hi, CZ. Thank you for all questions. Really. Hello.
Sorry, we just lost the connection a bit there. Can you hear us? Oh, another. Do you want to try again?
Yeah, I can. Can you?
Yeah. Oh, I think sure. It's gone again. Apologies.
Can
Let's
you hear
go.
Me?
No, it keeps cutting out. Do you want to put your question in chat and we'll read it out after the next one, perhaps? But yeah, let's go to Shyam, who's from Singapore University of Technology and Design Developer Club.
Yes, hello, CZ. Thank you very much for taking the time off to answer our questions, and thanks, George, for putting this all together. So my question is, why did you choose Cosmos for the Binance Smart Chain? Like, what was the rationale behind that decision?
So very honestly, I didn't choose it. Our team, some other guys said that's probably the best choice. I just said okay. So actually, to be very at the time, it was a high capacity blockchain with very strong fast throughput, etc. So they went with Tendermint. So it wasn't really my decision. I'm actually not an expert at it.
Oh. Okay, thank you for the answer.
Cheers. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And we'll go to Dion next.
I was at CZ. I'm from South Africa. I just got a question relating scalability and DeFi. I want to know your thoughts on Solana compared to BSC, and how you'd see BSC's transactions per second comparing to Solana. Yeah.
Okay, I think scalability is really, really important because the two most popular blockchains are maxed out. They're saturated. So Bitcoin and Ethereum, and this is why the gas fees on both networks are quite high, because once it's saturated, people bid for those places, and the gas fees goes high, and which actually removes access for the sort of poor guys. So it's not that accessible. Their popularity is also their limitation. So scalability is really, really important. So that's why for the last little while, I've always publicly said, look, we need faster blockchains, we need faster blockchains. But at the same time, scalability is really, really important, but it's only one factor. We have many faster blockchains today, but they don't get a lot of users because it's just very hard to bootstrap a new blockchain. We have to think about migratability. So ease of people migrating to your blockchain and ease and usability. So it's not a very easy process to do because it's a whole blockchains are whole ecosystems. So you have to have your blockchain explorer, you have to have your wallet, you have to have your hardware wallets. There are many different types of wallets: hardware wallets, software wallets, mobile wallets, etc. And you have to have your developers migrate, you have to have your users migrate, you have to have your bridges that bridge from, like, say, the popular ones, Bitcoin or Ethereum onto the new blockchains. You have to have cross-chain interoperability. So all of those issues need to be solved in addition to scalability. So this is why the first version of Binance Chain, which is based on Tendermint and Cosmos, we just thought scalability is the most important thing, and we made a fast blockchain, but it actually does not have a lot of people using it. It has some, but not a huge amount. And we learned from that. We said, well, there are other things that are important. The Binance Smart Chain team, so Solana is also in that camp where they just made a fast blockchain, but everything's independent, everything's new. You got to use a new wallet, you got to use a new explorer, you got to use a new everything. Whereas for Binance Smart Chain, the guys learned from that lesson and said, well, we're going to make Binance Smart Chain 100% compatible with Ethereum. So you can take a Ethereum Solidity smart contract, migrate to Binance Smart Chain with no cost. So it's very easy for the developers to migrate. It has scalability, the fees are low. So for the developers, it's much easier for them to attract users. The same wallet that works for Ethereum, MetaMask, works for Binance Smart Chain with a very simple configuration change. They somehow got the Etherscan team to build BinanceScan.io. I don't know how they did it, but they somehow got them to fork the code and works on Binance Smart Chain. And for most guys, I even for myself, when I use that, I was like, okay, I know how to use this thing. It's very familiar to me. So and then Binance.com acted as the bridge that bridges from Ethereum or other tokens onto Binance Smart Chain. And most people hold Binance have the largest user base, and most users are already holding custody with us, so they trust to store monies with us to use us as a bridge. And then we put our marketing power behind it. We also did a Binance ecosystem fund, which is $100 million trying to give grants to projects. So all of these things probably contributed a little bit everywhere, and that actually bootstrapped the Binance Smart Chain to be the from a transaction count perspective, the highest number, the most popular blockchain right now. But so in addition to scalability, there's a lot of other things you have to consider to bootstrap something. Binance Smart Chain, actually, I didn't plan any of that. It just somehow came together. I think the team did a really good job doing that. I asked Binance to give all of our support behind it from a marketing and bridging perspective. So somehow everything came together, and now it's a relatively popular one. It's not to say that Solana does not have a chance to be popular later on. Anything could happen later. So I think right now we're still so early in the industry, anything could happen later. The jury's still out. So I still support other blockchain development, including Solana, including other blockchains. And I think Binance Smart Chain can learn from the other developments as well. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at things.
Fantastic. I like your glasses as well, Dion. So we'll go back to Divya for the final question, and apologies to anyone we haven't been able to take the questions from. Divya, do you want to try asking the question again? If not, I'll read it out.
Yeah, is this working now?
Much better.
Okay, great. So my question to CZ was, you know how they say that, blockchain is what internet was in the 2000s, and that's sort of a game-changing technology. So back when the internet might have come around, it wasn't quite clear what the use cases could have been or what all we could have done with it. But
I think
right now, pretty much everything that we do has internet. So
I think we've lost your connection, Divya. So I'll just read it out from the chat. Apologies there. So Divya is basically asking that finance has been the main use case for blockchain so far, it seems. What do you see as the kind of the next game-changing industry for blockchain, CZ?
This is a very difficult question to predict, to be honest. I think, to be honest, when internet first started, internet was thought to be good in many different ways, including video conferencing. It actually took almost 2 decades, more than 2 decades. I think only recently we can do this type of video conferencing. And still, like, we get poor qualities just now, right? So it still doesn't really work. And e-commerce was kind of thought about, but we had a lot of credit card fraud, logistics wasn't there, shipping wasn't there, but it took like almost 2-3 decades to materialize. For blockchain, it's very difficult to say which ones are going to be the big ones later on. But I think one of the, especially at what time they're going to become dominant. Payments was one of the most obvious use cases that was first thought about. You see in the Bitcoin white paper, but it hasn't really taken off. Exchanges somehow taking off. Wallets, other e-commerce, gaming hasn't really taken off. So it's very hard, but now DeFi and DeFi took off. NFTs, I'm not sure yet. It's taking off, but still needs time to prove itself. Later on, I think, but the thing most people make is the mistake most people make that they think blockchain is only good for one thing, whereas I think blockchain is going to be like the internet. Where people thought, okay, no, we have radio, we have TV, and then we're gonna have internet. Internet is just a third channel. But later on, it turned out to be have internet radios, internet TV, internet everything else, internet e-commerce. So I think for blockchain, it's an ecosystem of things that will develop over time. It's not a single asset. It's not a single use case technology. So I think over time, we're gonna see a very large, diverse array of applications being built on blockchain. I don't know which one specifically will take off when, but I think if we give it a long enough horizon, say 20 years, 30 years, we're gonna have like people gonna use crypto everywhere. So that's kind of that's what I think. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, CZ. And just as we have hit 3 o'clock, I'm going to wrap up really quickly, if that's okay, CZ.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I do have another call to jump to. So
okay.
I go pretty soon.
Fantastic. Well, if everyone wants to quickly turn their camera on, if you'd like to be in the photo with CZ, we'll do that in kind of 30 seconds. So be really quick, put your cameras on. And thank you very much, CZ, again, for coming and kind of doing this AMA as part of Hack Africa. Be sure to go and sign up for that, everyone. Anthony's just put the links in the chat. So yeah, we will take the question, the photo in about 10 seconds. You've got to quickly put your camera on if you want to be involved. So here we go. Nice. Everyone ready? Everyone smile. Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Thank you very much, CZ.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Cheers. Yeah.
See you.
Bye-bye.
And thank you everyone for coming to the talk today. This has been recorded and we will post this onto the Encode Club YouTube channel probably in the next couple of days. And be sure to follow Encode Club on Twitter if you'd like to see when that's announced. And apologies to everyone that we weren't able to get to your questions. The CZ AMAs are always very popular, but we do have upcoming AMAs with other top people in the industry. So be sure to come along to those. But thanks again, everyone, and see you at the next event.
Thanks all.
Thank you, George.